Penrith 40 put to the sword in the end to the Broncos 12. Another game that was good for a top quality game, I thought, for 40 minutes. Unfortunately, as is the case with 14 other teams in the comp, they can't play 80 minutes. And what did the stats say, Barn?
7 tries to 2, 6 out of 7 conversions played, 2 out of 2 for the Broncos. High completion from both sides, 85% for Penrith, 86 for the Broncos. 40 out of 47 sets played, 32 out of 37. 800 plus running meters for the Panthers and 250 plus post-contact meters. 9 line breaks to 2, 48 tackle busts to 29, 13 offloads to 3, 4 forced dropouts from both sides, a 40-20 for the Panthers. 311 tackles played, 363, 3 ruck infringements to 7, 1 inside the 10 against the Panthers, 3 penalties conceded to 5, 9 errors to 8, and a sin bin for both teams. Yo with 46 tackles, Turpin with 35, May with 228 meters, and Paliasia with 186. Targo missed 5 tackles, made 12. Walters missed 7 and made 13. Cleary with 147 Supercoach points, Staggs with 102, Sorensen with 100.
Wasn't he on fire, Scott Sorensen?
Wasn't he? Wasn't he, Jeff?
Feels a bit. It felt. This will sound weird. I think I just had a look. Then the score was actually 22-6 when it happened. But that sin bin killed Brisbane off as well. In a weird way. I know both players went, but that was the end of Brisbane for the night. They were brave, the Broncos, but they're just not that good. And when you take off that player and then you lost Tessie New, who was the other attacking weapon on the night. Apart from Staggs, he looked like he was about to have a breakout game. Unfortunately, that just you can't take on Penrith without them. And by the last 20 minutes was just Penrith taking the piss. They'd earned, as I say, they'd earned the right to, as I get attacked by a bug, they'd earned the right to win the game, and they did it pretty comfortably. But up until then, Brisbane are brave. They'll beat some teams. I don't know when though. Like it seems to be a regular conversation the last 2 years. We keep saying they're going to beat someone, but at some point they actually have to. And the usual suspects were all fantastic. Cleary's, fourth up and top of his game. He'll be scary for the next few weeks leading into Origin. Liam Martin was fantastic. Yell's fantastic. The whole back five are pretty good. So, and Appy's almost in as good a form as you've ever seen him. Ollie?
Yeah, just on the Tessie New injury, I'll actually pinpoint that as the moment it all unraveled for Brisbane, because you could tell they would have planned and trained and worked so hard to take on Penrith this week, and that just would have unraveled everything, just their game plan, what they were looking to do. They were holding strong, and it just seemed like there wasn't, and obviously you don't go in and plan for injuries to happen to all your players, but when you're versing a quality side like Penrith and you are sort of sticking with them, anything like an injury to any of your players and any sort of reshuffle, majority of the time is going to throw you. And unfortunately,
they had to move Capel onto the. Was it Capel that went to the wing? So
and I think he did. Yeah, he did just go straight to the wing, which I thought was a bit odd, but it just it completely throws things out, and you've actually got to work your way back up. And for Brisbane, who are nowhere near the same quality as Penrith, that little change, I think, is what set it off for the Panthers. And look, I said in the last game, South Sydney's forwards just ran all over the top of the Bulldogs. Well, I think pretty much every Penrith player ran over the top of the Broncos, at least in the last 20 minutes of this game. It didn't really seem like any Penrith player in particular had a bad game. Just when they hit their stride and Brisbane were off, they were on, and any player was going to look like a superstar in that Penrith team for the last 20 minutes. It seemed everything just clicked. And I'd say, to your point, Daggy, that it was probably also Nathan Cleary's best game of the year so far, obviously.
Look, I thought Brisbane really good, and I think that Penrith had to up their level in the second half. I think it was one of those games that we've spoken about where the better team sort of cruise and do what they have to do to win. And then Brisbane was so good that I think Penrith had to sort of rethink at half time and think, okay, well, we've got to go from first year to the third or fourth year. I don't know, they got to fifth year. But, I think that they had to go up some gears. In the last 20 minutes, Brisbane were gassed and Penrith then sort of took the piss. But up to then, I thought Brisbane were really, really competitive. I thought Reynolds' kicking game, as you would expect, kept them in the contest, pinned them into corners as much as he could, and they defended. They had good line speed. considering they didn't have Payne Haas, they didn't have Carrigan, and they didn't have Flegler, who would be three probably players that would definitely be in their forward pack. I thought that they were quite good and, gave Penrith a fright in the first half. Staggs out there was sort of running amok, and when New was out there with him, that you thought stuff was sort of the first two decent possessions Brisbane got. They scored points and then probably had another one where Staggs dropped the ball or there was held up or whatever in the game as well. So they probably could have had another try. So, look, I thought Brisbane were quite good and Penrith had to increase their level. I don't think Penrith really had a bad player. Scotty Sorensen, sort of a breakout game. He's always been that good bench player that comes on, makes yards, makes his tackles and doesn't make any errors, which is what you want from your bench, because generally you see that 14, 15, 16 and 17 come on and they first touch as an error and whatnot. So Scotty Sorensen never sort of makes too many errors, and I'm glad for him he's had a sort of a breakout game in terms of that. It was Nathan Cleary's best game, but I think Brisbane, even though they didn't win, I think saw what Adam Reynolds brings for their team and sort of gets them around the field, good kicking game. If they can change mentality a bit and keep Haas on the field and Staggs playing well and whatnot, they've probably got enough to beat most of the bottom teams. If everything goes well for them, they've probably got Reynolds, Haas, Staggs, and throw a few other blokes in, can probably get the job done for them.
Yeah, another really impressive 40 minutes out of the Broncos. Unfortunately, they don't seem to be able to go much more than 40 minutes at the moment. There's going to be games where they can probably go through at 75% and maybe eke out 70 minutes and they'll get away with a few wins here and there against some different teams. But when they go at full throttle, they've obviously only got about 40 minutes left in them, and they did come as hard as they possibly could at this Penrith team in the first half and made Penrith work. It was realistically only two individual efforts that got Panthers in front and at half time. And, Jerome Luai with some footwork, and same again with Sorensen stepping back past a couple of lazy defenders and doing it all on their own. It wasn't anything superb out of Penrith. They do it better than anyone. They kick to the corners and they just absolutely make you earn every meter out of the defensive end, and it takes a toll on teams. Even it'll do it to the best teams. It's realistically probably one of the only ways you're going to beat Melbourne as well, is get them down there and just try to bash them while they're coming off their own try line. You got to take the energy out of them. And the Broncos, just could not match it with Penrith in the second half. They came out and just cranked it up a little bit. As Ollie mentioned, the forwards were just taking the piss by the end of the game. They were just busting holes everywhere. They significantly targeted both the halves, especially in that second half. They just ran their big boys at Adam Reynolds and Billy Walters, and Billy Walters can't tackle at the best of times. So put a bit of fatigue into him and see what happens at the back end of most games. He starts falling off a lot more than he makes. So, as you mentioned, Appy's in the best form he's been in for a long time. I thought Spencer Leniu, which I don't think anyone mentioned, was fantastic. The way he's run the ball in the last 2 weeks has been amazing, and if he can keep that up, he's going to earn an upgrade in his contract the next time it comes around, because I thought he was very destructive with the ball in hand. Trying to get hold of Penrith team with momentum is just a fucking nightmare. How do you stop them? How do you slow them down? Even if you do get them on the back foot, they just kick early and put you back down the other end and then make you work to get back to the other end of the field. So very clever with their defensive kicking, the Penrith team. You'll notice if you watch them hard enough, you'll notice as soon as it looks like any sign of trouble, they just bomb it down the other end and back their defense to pin the team down the other end of the field. And they did that a few times here. Penrith Broncos couldn't go with them. So there wasn't really anyone in that Broncos team that stood out to me except for maybe Paliasia. He had a real hard dig and went pretty well. I think he was trying to, fill the boots of Payne Haas, which not many people are going to do, but I thought he had a real crack.
I thought Jensen was good too.
Yes, Corey Jensen was good, considering he's been a bench player pretty much his entire career, and he's just sort of starting to break into it now. I thought, he had a pretty good go as well. But look, Fisher Harris was quite good again. He just brings that intimidation factor. Even when he has a quiet game, most of his runs put people on their ass, and then he sort of stands over them and all that kind of stuff. I thought Cleary was by far the standout in the game. Isaiah Yo, I gave 2 points just because he's in everything every week. And then I was a toss-up between Staggs, Sorensen, or Appy Coruscant for the one. Staggs was amazing too in that first half. He was having absolute fun just torturing Tago there for that first 40 minutes of the game. And with Tessie New on his inside, they were actually really causing Penrith a lot of problems on that side of the field. So,
we have 1 point. Good question. I'm happy to give one to Sorensen just because good on him.
The best game he's ever played, more than